Good morning and welcome to FIT Talks, the college's oral history project. Today is May 16, 2019. I'm Alex Joseph. I'm the managing editor of FIT's Hue magazine. And we are speaking to Roberta Elins, a longtime faculty member in FIT's Advertising, Marketing, Communication Department. And she is also currently the president of FIT's union. Roberta, good morning.
Good morning, Alex.
Okay, so give us a little context. Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
My childhood. I was fortunate enough to grow up in Brooklyn in the late 50s, 60s, and early 70s when Brooklyn was the world to those of us who grew up there. I had a fantastic public school education. I actually graduated from the high school that also produced Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, who was my neighbor, and the fabulous Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Wow.
So it was a good school.
Those are three top progressive people.
Correct.
Do you identify with those people, or?
I tend to go liberal, yes.
Okay. Do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a journalist. And I was very active in my high school newspaper, and actually the first piece I ever wrote was published in the New York Times.
Wow.
And I remember getting that check for $10 and being, oh my God, I'm a published writer. But my career diverged.
Okay, so I know you went to Vassar for college, but were you planning to write when you went to college? And sorry to back up. The New York Times piece, was that when you were still?
I was in college.
You were in college.
I was already in college, and my high school journalism professor asked me to write a piece, which I thought was for his journalism class, and then he sent it into what was then the college section of the New York Times.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember the topic?
Yes, it was about the difference between being a freshman and a sophomore at college.
Okay. So you went to Vassar, and obviously it's a liberal arts college. What were you thinking when you were there?
I knew right away when I got there that my career path was going to change. I was a history major, and I was intending to teach history at the college level.
Okay, that's what you were planning to do. Okay, and that was what your family was, that your background was, family wanted you to go into the academic teaching side of?
Absolutely not. My mother was a law school graduate. She wanted me to go to law school.
Oh, wow. Okay. So your plan was to go to teach history, and what happened?
Okay, what happened was I was accepted for my PhD at a number of schools. I decided to take a year off. I deferred from Columbia. They gave me a year extension to enter the program, and so I thought I would take a job for 1 year to make some money because I was tired of being a poor college student. I didn't want to be a poor graduate student. So I had 2 job offers. One was at an advertising agency and one was at a PR firm. The PR firm paid $50 more a year, so I took that one.
Okay.
I went to work as the executive assistant to the president of a very large PR firm, and I found out that I loved it. I mean, I loved it, and I was fairly good at it. And coincidentally, one of our clients was Eastman Codell, and the president was Bruce Roberts, as in the Roberts living room at FIT.
Oh, wow.
So when I walk into that living room, I often think of Bruce.
So your plans changed?
So my plans changed. So I did not pursue my PhD in history. I worked at 2 different firms, and then I opened up my own agency.
Okay.
I went back to school, but I went back to school for my master's in media studies.
Okay. All right. And that was here in the city?
At the New School.
Oh, at the New School. Okay. And do you remember how you first heard about FIT?
I first heard about FIT at the first PR agency I worked at because one of the first friends I made was a graduate of FIT. So that's how I heard about it.
And do you remember your first impressions of the place?
I hadn't physically seen the place.
Yeah.
She was just always talking. And actually 2 of the senior VPs were FIT graduates at that first agency. So,
was there an AMC department here at the time?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So what brought you here? How did you first come here?
Okay, well, that same person from my early agency years who told me about FIT was teaching a course as an adjunct, publicity workshop, and she often asked me to come in and do the lesson on broadcast PR because one of my subspecialties was putting people on television and prepping them, and I often also did on-camera interviews. So I would come in once a semester and leave. It was great. It's great being a guest speaker. And then in the summer of 1986, she had the opportunity to become a managing director at Burson Marsteller in London. And she called me up and she said, do you think you could teach publicity workshop for 15 weeks? I said, yes, I could. So I came in, I interviewed for the job. They handed me the textbook. I found my classroom, and that's how I started teaching here.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that was in 1986, you said. Okay. And do you remember what were your first thoughts when you came? When you at the time we had all these buildings, but what was the environment like? What was
the environment was really exciting. I taught in the evening, so most of my students worked during the day. At the time I started teaching here, there was a complete separation between the evening programs and the day programs. Day students were not allowed to take evening courses unless they got permission from the chairperson. So my students were mostly young working professionals or older working professionals who were coming back for some refresher courses, and so it was a lot of fun teaching them because they brought a lot of things to the table as well.
Did you not work in the industry after that? What was?
Oh, no. I didn't close my agency until 1998.
Oh,
I was already teaching. I was already full-time faculty, and I was still doing my stuff on the side.
Tell me a little bit about your private, if you don't mind.
No.
Tell me about what your work was and what were you doing?
I started off specializing in cosmetics and fragrance and beauty. And I did that for probably 10, 12 years. I introduced Clarins into this country from France. I worked on Shiseido. I had a client named Jerome Alexander with whom I did a lot of things. I actually co-authored a book with him. And after 10 years, I said, if I have to write another press release on blush, we've got to expand, we've just got to expand this portfolio. So I merged my agency with another agency that specialized in fine jewelry. So we did Gucci timepieces. I worked on Henry Junet Designs, who's a very well-known jeweler. I also worked on low-income housing tax credits, so Related Capital, the people that built Hudson Yards, was my former client.
Wow.
So I had a lot of different kind of clients.
Okay. And you did press releases, you did on-camera interviews. What was the general feel of the industry for you? Like, what were the challenges and what was exciting to you?
What was exciting is that we had really big budgets. When I was first doing special events, we had really big budgets, and so we took the editors to Paris if we wanted to show them something that came out of France. And it was an exciting time originally because you didn't have to be an advertiser in a magazine to get editorial placement. It was really earned media. That has a little bit gone by the wayside for smaller clients. I mean, if you're a major name, you can still do it. So that was a lot of fun. There were so many individual markets for television. So if you were taking a client out on tour, you did AM Baltimore, which happened to have been hosted by Oprah at the time, or Good Night Houston, which was Charlie Rose. And so there were a lot of really interesting hosts and markets. And one other thing that I did do, which I loved, I introduced the first line of African American romance novels I was the PR company for that. And that was terrific.
Wow.
They were wonderful women and great books. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. So you brought this knowledge, understanding of the industry to the college, and it was 13 years that you were doing both. You were teaching it. And then in 1998 you decided to teach full-time? Or
No, I started teaching full-time in 1994.
Wow.
I was teaching full-time in 1994. Even though I closed my agency, I still remained and remain active in PR for about 20 years. I was on the board of the Public Relations Society of America's New York chapter. I was on the board of the Educators Academy, and I go to the national conference every year.
Wow. Okay, so you're here at FAT and you're teaching advertising.
I'm teaching public relations.
Public relations, okay.
I mean, I teach intro to advertising, but my specialty is public relations.
Okay, so tell me what it was like when you were first here. How was it different from the way it is now?
From the student point of view, we had many, many more first generation college students. And some of them came without really the support of their parents, and I'm not even talking about financially. It's especially, I hate to say this, among the women. It was, why do you really need to get a college degree? They were eager, they were smart, they are smart. That hasn't really changed. We still have great students who are creative and do great things once they get into industry. I think the thing that may have changed is the stress level of our students seems to be a little higher than it was.
Huh. What do you mean? Tell me more about that.
They try to balance too many things. They try to have too many internships and jobs and take 7 classes at the same time, and that's hard to do.
Is that a reflection of a reality that the industry expects more of them, or expects them to have more experience?
Partially, okay. When they go out of here, they have a resume that you usually see on somebody who's been, out in the field for a couple of years.
Okay. How about the institution itself?
Okay, that one's easy. Right? When I first came here, the liberal arts were not valued as they are now. We had many, many students, not in advertising, marketing, communications, and usually not in the School of B&T, who actually did not graduate because they didn't fulfill their liberal arts requirements. And they got wonderful jobs and very talented, but there really wasn't the emphasis that there is now. And as somebody with 2 liberal arts degrees, I'm very happy to see that.
Is it necessary? Why do you think the switch? What was the rationale for the change?
I would say that change was spearheaded by Dr. Brown when she got here, that she wanted more of an emphasis on the liberal arts. Not more of an emphasis, but an equal emphasis on the liberal arts. And with that support, a lot of really new, wonderful courses were written. And now we have liberal arts minors, which is a fabulous thing for our students. So I can have an advertising, marketing, communication student who has a minor in economics or a minor in psychology, which will translate into being better in the industry as well.
Now you have worked with quite a few top alums, right, that go on to have really interesting careers. Let's talk about some of them. Who comes to mind?
Okay, Kristen Campbell, who was Kristen Caffrey when she was here. When she was here, she was the advertising director of W27. It's the only time I remember that newspaper actually made money, because she could sell advertising to anybody. She left here. She started at Kenneth Cole. She then went to Calvin Klein. From Calvin Klein, she went to Michael Kors, where she was the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing. And after that to Bottega Veneta. So now she is freelancing before she decides what her next career move is, but she's a superstar. Margot Caniato, who was Margot Barron when she was here, Margot started at the Rowland Company, which was my first PR agency. I accused her of shadowing my footsteps. And then she went to Liz Claiborne, and then she went to Target, and then she went to Kate Spade.
Wow.
And she finally opened, she became a partner in her own PR agency.
Okay, she's a partner now in her own.
Oh yeah, she's a
firm.
partner. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
VP and C, the C's for Caniato.
That's cool. Those are really great examples. What do you think that overall, do you think the college has had a sort of cumulative effect on the advertising PR field?
Yes, I can talk to PR more easily. And pretty much any PR firm you go into, you're going to find an FIT graduate. Plus our graduates hire our graduates. And so when they're looking for somebody, they'll often call the department or they'll email individual faculty members and say, who can you recommend? I have this opening.
Wow. And what do you think, if you could pin it down, FIT's contribution to the field has been in terms of, is there a tenor or a feeling to the field that's slightly different because of these grads? I mean, maybe not. Maybe the answer is no. Just
I don't know if I can really speak to that. I can speak to the fact that when they do go, whether they go to an agency or they go in-house, they're incredibly well prepared. And they bring that knowledge, but also a work ethic that I don't think really comes out of other institutions.
Can we talk about some of your favorite people from your time at the college? I mean, you've been here
Forever.
Charlie Goodman, by any chance?
Yes,
Okay.
but not well.
Okay.
So my favorite people on the academic side, it would have to start with Arthur Winters, who's a professor emeritus in advertising, marketing, communications. He hired me as adjunct faculty and was my first mentor. I had no teacher prep experience. And then Jeffrey Buckman, who was the chair of advertising, marketing, communications when I became full-time faculty and is still a good mentor to me. And outside of my own department, the very fabulous late Elaine Stone. Elaine Stone, I mean, I was not in her department. She took me under her wing, and anytime I needed to get some advice from outside my home department, I went to Elaine. From the union point of view, it would have been Lou Stoller, who saw something in me that made him think I could eventually be president of this union. And then it would be Juliet Romano, our immediate past president, who was a tremendous mentor to me and is still a phone call away when I need some advice.
Tell me about how you got involved in the union. Was there a specific moment, or?
I'm second generation union. My mother was very active in the UFT, and she was a NYSUT delegate and an AFT delegate. So when I stepped on this campus and they handed me a union card, I signed up right away. It never occurred to me not to. And I think it was in the late 90s, Lou Stoller said to me, I want to take you to lunch. We said, there are no free lunches. And Lou took me to lunch and he said, I want to activate you. And I said, fine. And so I started out on the executive committee and kind of worked my way up.
So what was Lou like as a person?
Pretty much larger than life. Okay, Elaine and Lou were very good friends, so that'll kind of tell you something. He was strong, strong-willed. He was a wonderful president. Many of the wonderful working conditions that we have at this college were during his time when he was negotiating.
All the benefits, shortened hours.
A lot of the benefits.
Health insurance, okay.
Well, that's been renegotiated by all of us, but a lot of the things that people say make their work-life balance possible come from his time negotiating.
Those are two obviously towering figures in FIT, at least their recent history especially,
Yes.
but all told, Lou and Elaine, both are people that I knew and interviewed. And anybody else, I mean, that's fine if that's it, but just...
I don't want to start naming people because then I'll leave somebody out.
What person do you think in general had the most positive influence over your life?
Two people. My late mother, okay, who, as I said, graduated from law school, so I never won an argument, but taught me how to be a good negotiator, because I was negotiating at a young age with a tough negotiator. And my husband, who is not only my biggest supporter, but my biggest critic when the time calls for it, and has helped me make many good decisions and prevented me from making some bad ones. So those two.
Very eloquent. But we didn't really talk that much about your union experience. So you were brought in by Lou. You said he activated you.
Right, that's who literally said he activated me.
Meaning he would give you a position, or he would just sort of...
No, meaning he asked me to run for executive committee, which I did, and I became on the executive committee. And then I was invited to sit in on the officers' meetings. And then I started running for union offices, and so let's say I've been the union's membership director, second vice president for faculty, vice president for faculty, executive VP, and now president. So.
Wow. So how have you noticed how has the union changed? Obviously the climate around unions has changed enormously in the last few years, but...
It has been. I have to tell you that post the Janus decision, our union's stronger than ever.
Wow.
Or unions in general. The Janus decision, they thought that was going to kill unions, and it did just the opposite.
Wow.
All the major unions' membership is up.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. What book influenced you the most, do you think?
I can't say there's one book. I'm a voracious reader, and so many have influenced me.
Any fiction or just nonfiction?
I read a lot of fiction, but when I'm reading nonfiction, it's generally on Churchill. Okay, that's my deep secret.
Interesting.
I'm a huge Churchill fan.
Oh, wow.
So I would say the biography is on William Churchill.
Okay, favorite fact about Churchill?
Favorite fact about Churchill. That he never got out of bed before 12, and he conducted all of his early morning business in his bedroom with a glass of scotch and a large cigar.
In the morning?
Yeah, oh, in the morning,
Good
yes.
for him. Wow. Okay. What do you think you'd like for people to remember about you?
That I loved what I do, and that I tend to do it with enthusiasm, that I'm a hard worker, and that from the union point of view that I have fairly represented our members. And from a student point of view, I will tell you what they say about me. They say I am very tough, but very fair.
Tough but fair. That's good. That's a good way. And finally, what question haven't I asked that you wish that I had asked?
Would I do it all over again?
Would you?
I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. I often say, I'm going to be entering my 33rd year at FIT in the fall, and I am as excited to step foot on this campus every morning as I was 33 years ago, and that is a gift.
Do you still feel optimistic for the college?
Absolutely. I mean, change is hard. We have to adapt. I don't like all of the changes, so I would be honest. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that. But I think FIT's got a great brand, and we'll have a fantastic future.